The song took 8 minutes to write. Not the recording, not the production, not the arrangement that would eventually make it one of the most recognisable pieces of music in the history of popular music. Just the song itself, the melody, the chord progression, the essential thing that everything else would be built around. 8 minutes, in a house in Sweden, on a summer afternoon, while outside, the world had no idea what was being created inside. That song was Dancing Queen, and this is the story nobody told you. Before we go any further, think about what 8 minutes means. You have probably spent more than 8 minutes deciding what to have for lunch, more than 8 minutes choosing what to watch on television, more than 8 minutes doing almost anything that felt significant. And yet, in 8 minutes, 2 men sitting at a piano in a house in Sweden created something that would be played at weddings and celebrations and moments of pure human joy for the next 50 years. Something that would make people stop whatever they were doing and smile without quite knowing why. How does that happen? What are the conditions that allow something like that to exist? And what does it cost the people who make it? Benny Andersson was born on December 16th, 1946, in Stockholm. He grew up in a musical family. His grandfather played the accordion, his father played as well. Music was not something Benny discovered, it was something he was born into, something that was already in the room when he arrived. And from the beginning, he had a relationship with melody that was less like learning and more like remembering, as if the tunes were already inside him, and the piano was simply the instrument that let them out. Björn Ulvaeus was born on April 25th, 1945, in Gothenburg. He was a different kind of musician, more analytical, more interested in structure, more comfortable with words than with pure sound. Where Benny felt music, Björn thought it. And the combination of those two approaches, the feeling and the thinking, the melody and the structure, produced something that neither of them could have produced alone. They had been writing together for years before ABBA existed. They knew each other's rhythms. They knew when to push and when to wait. They knew the particular silence that meant the other person was onto something, and the particular kind of restlessness that meant they were stuck. They had developed a language between them that was partly musical and partly something else entirely. The language of two people who have spent enough time making things together that the making itself becomes a form of communication. And on a summer afternoon in 1975, sitting at a piano in Benny's house, they stumbled onto something. The chord progression came first. Benny's hands found it almost accidentally, the kind of discovery that happens when you are not trying too hard, when you are playing rather than working. And when Björn heard it, something clicked. Not a word yet, not a title, just a feeling. The feeling that this particular sequence of notes contained something worth following. They followed it for 8 minutes, and Dancing Queen existed. The recording process was different. That took months. Because Benny and Björn were not the kind of people who settled for good when extraordinary was possible, they were perfectionists in the truest sense. Not anxious perfectionists who were afraid of failure, but curious perfectionists who genuinely believed that the right version of a thing was worth the time it took to find. The production of Dancing Queen went through multiple iterations. The tempo was adjusted, the arrangement was refined. The famous piano introduction, those opening notes that are now among the most recognisable in popular music, went through several versions before it became what it is. Each version was good. The final version was something else. Agneta and Annie Fried's vocals were recorded separately and then layered. This was standard ABBA practice. The harmonies were built rather than sung simultaneously. But Dancing Queen required something particular from both of them. The song is about joy, pure, uncomplicated, unironic joy. And joy, as any performer knows, is the hardest thing to sing convincingly. Anyone can sing sadness. Sadness has weight and texture, and 100 different ways to be true. But joy, real joy, requires a kind of openness that most trained performers have learned to protect themselves against. Agneta and Anni-Frid gave it completely. The vocal performances on Dancing Queen are among the most generous recordings either of them ever made. There is nothing held back, nothing protected. Just two voices, at the absolute peak of their powers, giving everything to a song that asked for everything. The recording was completed in the late summer of 1975. It was released as a single in August 1976. And what happened next happened fast. In Sweden, it entered the charts immediately. In the UK, it reached #1 within weeks. In America, it became ABBA's only #1 single, at a time when Breaking America was considered the ultimate validation, the one thing that separated the truly global from the merely successful. In Australia, it sparked scenes that bordered on hysteria. In Japan, it became something close to a national obsession. But here is what is extraordinary about Dancing Queen's success. It was not just popular, it was beloved. There is a difference. Popular songs get played, beloved songs get kept. They become part of people's personal histories. They get attached to specific memories, specific moments, specific feelings that cannot be accessed any other way. And Dancing Queen, within months of its release, had become that kind of song for millions of people. Why? This is the question that music journalists and academics and industry analysts have been asking for 50 years. What is it about Dancing Queen? Why does it work the way it works? Why does it make people feel what it makes them feel? The melody is beautiful, but there are many beautiful melodies. The production is extraordinary, but there is much extraordinary production. The vocals are remarkable, but there are many remarkable vocalists. The answer, as with all truly great songs, is that it is more than the sum of its parts. And the reason it is more than the sum of its parts is because of what went into making it. Not just skill, not just talent, but something more specific. Something that only Benny and Björn and Agneta and Anni-Frid, in that particular configuration, at that particular moment in their lives, could have made. Here is what was happening in the lives of the 4 people who made Dancing Queen in the summer of 1975. Benny and Anni-Frid were together, happy in the complicated way that happy people in creative partnerships are happy, productive, energized, in the middle of something that felt important and right, and like it was only going to get bigger. Björn and Agneta were married. Linda had just been born, their daughter, their first child. Agneta was navigating the strange new territory of being a new mother, while also being one of the most famous people in Sweden. She was tired in the deep, specific way that new parents are tired. And she was full, in the way that people who have just been given something they didn't know they needed are full. The song they were making was about being young, about dancing, about the specific freedom of a Friday night when you are 17 and the music is loud and everything feels possible. None of them were 17. None of them were in a ballroom on a Friday night. They were 4 people in their late 20s and early 30s, making music in a studio, with all the complexity and responsibility and accumulated experience that comes with that age. And yet, the song they made sounds like it was made by people who remembered exactly what it felt like to be 17, who could reach back across the years, past the marriages and the children and the fame and the complexity, and touch that particular feeling, that particular lightness, the feeling of dancing, really dancing, when nothing else matters and the music is all there is. This is the genius of Benny and Björn, not the technical genius, although that is real, but the emotional genius, the ability to write not from where they were, but from where the listener needed them to be. the ability to inhabit a feeling that was not precisely their own and make it feel more true than anything personal could have. Think about what Dancing Queen gave the world. It gave it permission. Permission to feel joy without apology. Permission to dance without embarrassment. Permission to be, for the length of a song, exactly as young and free and alive as you were the first time you heard music that made you want to move. It gave that permission to 17-year-olds in 1976, and to their mothers, and to their daughters, and to people who were 70 when the song came out, and who felt something they had not felt in decades. This is a rare gift. Most music gives people what they want. Dancing Queen gave people something they had forgotten they needed. The story of Dancing Queen does not end in 1976. It barely begins there. In the decades after its release, the song accumulated a life that no one could have predicted. It became a gay anthem, adopted by LGBTQ communities around the world as a song of celebration, of defiance, of the particular joy that comes from claiming the right to dance when the world has told you not to. ABBA have spoken warmly about this. They did not write Dancing Queen as a gay anthem, but they understand, with the clarity of people who have spent their lives thinking about what music does, why it became one. Because the song is about freedom, and freedom means something particular to people who have been told they cannot have it. It became a wedding song, a graduation song, a song played at the start of things and occasionally at the end of things. A song that belongs to the moments when people need to feel larger than their circumstances, larger than their fear, larger than whatever it is that has been making them small. In 2008, the Mamma Mia film used Dancing Queen as its opening sequence. Meryl Streep running through a Greek village, throwing her arms wide, and the song beginning. For millions of people who saw that film, that image became permanently attached to the song, and the song became permanently attached to that feeling. The feeling of throwing your arms wide and running towards something good. Benny Andersson was asked once, many years after the song was written, whether he had known, when the chord progression came to him in 8 minutes on that summer afternoon, whether he had known that he was creating something permanent. He said no. He never knew in the moment. Nobody does. You make the thing. You follow the feeling. You do the work. And sometimes, if you are very lucky and very good, and the conditions are exactly right, something happens that is larger than what you intended. Something escapes, and it belongs to the world now. Not to you anymore. To the world. Dancing Queen escaped in 1976, and it has been belonging to the world ever since. It has been played at the opening ceremonies of events. It has been sung by heads of state. It has been the first dance at weddings, and the last song at parties, and the song that comes on the radio at exactly the right moment when you needed to hear something that reminded you that the world is not only difficult, that there is also this particular sequence of chords, this particular melody, this particular feeling of being, just for a moment, exactly as young and free and alive as you have ever been. Don't miss this detail. In 2021, when ABBA released Voyage, their first album in 40 years, they performed Dancing Queen as part of the Avatar's concert concept. Digital versions of themselves, at the age they were when the song was written, performing it as they had performed it in 1976. The technology required to make this happen was extraordinary. The emotional effect of watching it, even more so. Because what you were seeing was not nostalgia. It was something stranger and more moving than nostalgia. It was proof that the feeling inside the song, the feeling that Benny found in 8 minutes on a summer afternoon in 1975, was not a product of youth. It was not something that had been left behind. It was still there, preserved, permanent, waiting. This is what Dancing Queen actually is. Not a pop song from the 1970s, not a nostalgia trip, not even a great recording, although it is certainly that. It is a container, a vessel for something that does not have a name, something that exists in the space between the first note and the last, something that makes people feel, for exactly 3 minutes and 51 seconds, that the world is exactly as large and free and full of possibility as it felt the very first time they heard music that made them want to dance. Benny Andersson found that in 8 minutes, on a summer afternoon, at a piano, in a house in Sweden. And the world, 50 years later, is still dancing. The stage lights may have gone out, but that melody, that particular, impossible, irresistible melody, is still playing. And somewhere in Stockholm, a man who found something extraordinary in 8 minutes knows exactly what he gave the world, and smiles, quietly, to himself, as he sits back down at the piano and begins again.